brothers and sisters, as we gather here today to honor the mother of our beloved Swami, or as they say, the Amma of Ishvara, Ishwarama, we are extremely blessed. We have in our midst today some very ardent devotees of our beloved Swami. At the outset, I want to acknowledge the presence today of Sister Anne Sahani and her husband, Uncle Bisu Sahani. They are no strangers to Sai devotees in this part of the world. Sister Anne has been blessed to serve as the National Devotion Coordinator of the USI organization. She also served as the president of our very own Mid-Atlantic region. She was also instrumental in starting the Brooklyn Sai Center, which was one of the first Sai centers in North America. Brothers and sisters, Sister Anne and Bisu, Sai. Today we also have former students of our beloved Swami, Sriram, Someshwara and Prashant, Desai, who are here to talk about the life lessons that they learned from our beloved Swami and also offer a musical tribute at his lotus feet. Sriram graduated in 1991 from Prashant and he was blessed to receive a gold medal from his Divine Chancellor, Bhagwan Shri Sathya Sai Baba, in the field of mathematics. As a student, he was active in the field of dance, sports and music. He also accompanied Swami to Kodaikanal during one of Swami's visits to that place. So Prashant also is a graduate in BSc Mathematics. He graduated in 1993. Prashant has been privileged to have performed in the divine presence of our beloved Swami as a musician and also as a speaker. So they will first talk about the life lessons they learned and then offer their musical tribute. For the musical, they will be accompanied. They will receive instrumental support from brothers Sai Sham, Jnanesh, and brother Samir Rao, all active young adults from the New Jersey, New York area. So I request you to please give a very warm welcome to these wonderful messengers of our beloved Swami.
Sriram, brothers and sisters. My pronouns at Swami's Lotus Feet. I know he is here with us today. In spirit, in presence, we are truly blessed to be his devotees. We were blessed to be his students. I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all. I thought I would take an opportunity to just tell a few instances of our experience while we were there as students. Hopefully while during our time there, we learned something, and it is our prayer to him that we try and actually imbibe and spread in whatever way we can is the message that he has taught us. So thank you for the opportunity. I spent 10 years there, so by some standards it's a long time, some standards you always feel as though it's never enough. But I consider myself truly blessed to have spent that much time. My journey to Puttaparthi actually started probably sometime way back, even before I went there. I didn't know about it, of course, but my family were devotees. They didn't actually used to visit Parthi that much, but they were devotees. They used to go to the Sundaram was there. We still live pretty close to Sundaram, so we used to visit. And I had an aunt who was actually aiding, and way back, I think this is in the late 70s, early 80s, actually late 70s, that Swami once during his visit to Chennai, he actually came home. So I happened to be there, and I saw him, and it was interesting. I was a young kid in primary school, and I saw him, and he came, he blessed, and he went back, and that was my only memory. And after that, she was gone. And I had no interaction, no real, no actually exposure of any kind to Swami or bhajans or any of that stuff. But my parents obviously, actually more my father, he was always a devotee. He would go to party sometimes, he would come back. And then when I was in middle school, he and my mother talked, and one fine day he told me that I was actually going to go and apply to the school. And at that time, the school was just, it didn't have a proper school. It was actually the Ishwarama, the Ishwarama school, which is the Telugu medium school. They had actually started English medium there as well. So that was the only school that was there. This is in '81. And we went over there, and I said, okay, I mean, if I'm going, that's fine. I'm not sure why, but that's okay. And I was in middle school, like I said, and this is in the eighth grade. So it was interesting. Nityanand Menon was the hostel warden at that time. He was also the principal. And I remember my parents, actually my family were musically inclined. They learned Carnatic music and stuff, though I had completely no training of any sort, whatever. So Nityanand Menon knew about this from my father, that I was musically inclined, or rather my family had been musically inclined. So he said, okay, so it looks like you come from a musical family, so why don't you sing? This is the interview for my school. I said, what do I sing? Okay, can I sing anything? He said, yeah, sure, you can sing anything. So I was trying to think, okay, what's the latest Bollywood song that was there? So I actually sang the latest Bollywood song. I thought he would be pretty thrilled. My dad was there. He was obviously trying to find places to hide, but I think I did okay because I got admitted. So that was my entrance to the school, and but little do we know that there's a design behind our entrance to Swami's world, in a sense, physical world in a sense. So that's how I came in. The whole, my school really, now it's been many years of course, but the school was a blur of sorts. Swami was, so when I joined, Swami's physical frame, he was 55 by the Christian calendar at that time, and so I spent 5 years, and then was blessed to witness Swami's 60th birthday celebration, which was, of course, which is magnificent, and then went on to do 5 years of college as well. But the days that I remember while we were there, when I was in school, one of the things that I remember of Swami very fondly was his pan chewing habit. I don't know if how many of you remember this, but Swami used to chew pan pretty regularly, and he was always red-lipped. He used to have red lips, as you can see here, and that, of course, it was fascinating. To the only thing that we would all want to have the opportunity to give Swami a handkerchief so he could wipe himself. He could wipe his mouth. There would be a little tinge of red on the handkerchief, and we would be dying to get that handkerchief. So that was the big thing, to try and give a handkerchief to Swami so he could wipe his mouth, and then we could get that little tinge of red. So that was an interesting thing that I remember. It's funny, the thing that you remember when you're young, and how Swami touches you in different ways. But this is something that we remember. And then the other thing that struck me was when this was the mandir of old, when the sands, the mandir sands. Again, not sure how many of you remember the mandir sands, but it always used to fascinate me when I was there how Swami would walk by the devotees. He would then come back. He would walk close to the students, where the students used to sit. Now, at that time, the entire student community could actually sit in the mandir, in the premises, in his building complex. So he would sit, and it was fascinating how you could see, and he would walk, and then every step he took, right behind, there would be people waiting to grab at the grains of sand that he walked on. They would grab and they would pocket it. Those are some of the memories that I had when I was there. The other thing that I remember, this is when we were, again, at that time, Swami used to let us. He used to give us an opportunity to do this, and it amazes me how he would have the time amongst all the things that he does. Now when I think back. But he would let us, when we had a birthday, he would let us actually get sweets and a box of clove. So we would always pick on just the clove. We would want to have the clove. We would pick that, put one in his mouth, and then we would carry sweets, candy, and he would take the candy always distribute it. And it's funny how never once have I seen somebody get the candy that he himself got. So I mean, he would distribute to everybody. Sometimes the candy would just run out, and the boy who was the birthday boy, he would be left with no candy. So I think it's a lesson that Swami used to teach, that on your birthday, and this is something that we now try and teach our kids if we could, that the birthday is about, of course, it's your birthday, but then you use that as an opportunity to share, to give of yourself to others. So it's in some way, I think it's a gentle reminder to us that we are here each time we have a birthday. We remind ourselves that we are here to share our whatever we have amongst others. So that's the other thing that I remember. And of course, there used to be lots of visits that Swami would make to the hostel, to the college, lots of them. And I think it went down a little bit over the years, as of course there was more activities that Swami used to get involved in. But those used to be special moments. This was just students. Swami would of course invite a few special guests as well. But it was interesting to see almost a transformed Swami in a kind, because he would be there. He was like a parent. He was like a friend of sorts. He would come, joke around. As you can see, this is actually the hostel. He's walking around. We put up a shanya and stuff there. But he would walk around. He would of course have dinner or lunch, whatever it would be. Mostly it would be dinner. He would do an elaborate spread, more for the guests, because Swami hardly eats anything. Even then he used to hardly eat anything. So we would spread out an elaborate, menu. And as you can see, he would go around, make sure everybody was seated. He would make sure that all the guests, these were his guests who he had got along, he would make sure that they were seated, they were all served first. As you can see, he's standing there, somebody's getting served, and he would ask, he would let them eat, then he would ask, so he would make sure to ask, he would make sure, and then he would make sure after they were seated, he would want to get us seated. He would walk amongst us. If you so he would then walk amongst us, and he would want to make sure that we are also seated down. And then after all of us are seated down, of course, we would say the Brahmarpanam. And as you can see, he's walking around. He's trying to make sure. And sometimes he would physically take things. This is of course not the same time. This is at a different venue, but he would literally sometimes serve things himself. And sometimes he would just walk in. This is of course an occasion when he visited us physically, and he was actually going through making sure that the students are eating. And then after everybody's seated down, he would sit down, and then he would stand from up, and he would sometimes eat, sometimes not, and then spend time with us that way. Sometimes he would just come by to the hostel, not just to actually, not a program, not a planned visit, just an unplanned visit. He would come by, and he would just say, just want to make sure that what the students are being fed. I remember lots of times he would just inquire, okay, what did you have for breakfast today? Right. And so we would tell him, and then he says, huh. So he would call the warden, so he would call the warden, and he would ask, what are you feeding them? So you should feed them more pulses. You should clothes. And he became the Reserve Bank of India that day. He produced some fresh notes, and he said, go get yourself some shirts. He would do, so, things of that nature. I mean, he would want to make sure that you're taken care of, every student is taken care of. So, it's, at that time, it's really odd remembering how at that time, things just seemed normal. It just seemed that was the normal thing for it to be. And now when you think back, it's amazing. It's amazing. And of course, the other thing that I remember about the university is the amount of opportunity one had to pretty much learn so many different things. So there were students who, to the extent that, of course, I used to be interested in so many different things that beyond the point I was just doing all kinds of things and never really mastered anything. But the thing is, you had the opportunity. You could do debates, you could do art, you could do dance, you could do theater. Here I am, I think, part of the Veda chanting group, so opportunity to learn the Vedas, and of course, Swami would try and get the best instructors for this. So we had, actual Telugu pundits teaching us, the Rudram, the Chamakam, the Purushottam, all of that stuff. So they would actually teach us this, and then he would, of course, give us the opportunity to actually do it, present it in his presence. So those are some of the memories. This is again during one of the visits, and of course that famous Mercedes that Swami had, which is very dear to us. We have lots of memories with that. So this is one of the visits to the college, in fact. And of course he would visit, and as would be expected, students would just crowd around him, and he would just love it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's the crowds never bothered him. He would be happy. He would be fooling around, joking around, and you can see he's hey, he would do that. He's like raising his hand at someone. Once I remember, we were actually in the Purnachandra auditorium. So we were doing some performances, and as usual, we wanted each one of us to trying to get as close as possible to Swami. Swami is trying to actually instruct us to do something, and we're not bothered about what he's telling us. We just want to be close to him, try and get every chance we can to get Padnamaskar and stuff. So he would come around. I hope I didn't hit you too hard. Those are some interesting memories I have. But he would just joke around. He would play. He would come and he would walk around. He's literally, my memory of him is as a parent. The reason I have this here is only to show that, of course, those are memories. But then again, we were just normal young boys. Doing what boys do, fooling around. We had, and sometimes we would actually, when Swami was not in Parthi, at that time, in the evenings after school or college, we would have the opportunity to go to the auditorium and actually play sport. So of course in the morning we would play a little bit of sport before we go to school. But in the evening, the only chance you would have for sport would be when Swami is not in Parthi. So this is, I think, one of those occasions. Swami is not in Parthi. So we would play right after school. We would run out, go back, and then we would be playing all evening. Then come back and do things. But we did have, you can see this, there may be people you can recognize here. Ratnakar, of course, is right there, right in the middle. You will notice in all the photographs, it's interesting, you will find Ratnakar. If you see everybody else, the only person who's dressed semi-formally is Ratnakar. You will always see him in white clothes, and sometimes we would make fun of him. Now he's Ratnakaranam to a lot of people in Puttaparthi. But he would always be dressed in white. You can see, I think there's another photograph as well where we're doing something similar, and he's always in white, dressed in a white shirt. He would play sports. This is outdoors. We would be doing silly stuff indoors as well, and you can see Ratnakar again. He's dressed in white. It was interesting now to think about it, but that's how we knew him. But I think a lot of folks you would see, and sometimes you would be doing this stuff, and Swami would come by and actually want to. This is of course the time when Swami was physically there in Parathi. But the reason we are here is because we were actually practicing one of these folk dances. I think this is the Bhangra that we are doing in the auditorium, and as you can see, that time it was pretty open. The whole auditorium. You can't see the back now, but there's just a few of those statues that were there that Swami directed. I've actually seen them come up during my time there. But he's actually visiting us, trying to make sure that we're doing our practice. You come for these. You also come for the dress rehearsals sometimes, and you want to make sure how we're doing, because he was very conscious about the image that the students portrayed to the rest of the world. This, again, like I said, there was lots of opportunity to do different things. This is, we were in some program. That actually is Gautam Dutt, right? To the left of Swami is Gautam Dutt. He's a Bharat brother. But this is some, you're dressed as security or police or something, I remember. Again, one more play that we had done with Swami. At some point, this is I think in the college time when I was there. One more again, you can see Ratnakar there as well. Just instances of where Swami would come, he would insist on actually seeing them. He would actually insist on going through these rehearsals. One of the most interesting things that I remember, right? And again, he teaches us with every little thing that he does. It's interesting how he teaches us things. So he would come, for any program, he would come at least for 3 or 4 rehearsals. So if any one of us have seen a program once, then we know what to expect. So we're not waiting with bated breath of what's going to happen. But Swami is the only person I've seen who every program he would actually come for, every rehearsal that he would come for. He obviously knows exactly what's going to come next. But every program he would behave as though he's seeing it for the first time. He would laugh at if there was a joke, he would be laughing at every single joke, every single time. He would be amused like a little child. He would be entranced by the performance. That's just so amazing to me that that here he is. He knows every single moment of what's going to happen, every one of our lives, and here he's letting us perform in front of him, and he's showing us that he actually enjoys it. I think it's a lesson, in how to just deal with people, how to deal with people that you care for, how you take interest in every little thing that they do. It's a touching lesson. This is, and of course, after the biggest thing about doing any of these programs, after you do them, you have an opportunity for Pad Namaskar. So here, this is the same program that we've done, I think, where Ratnakar is trying to get Pad Namaskar, and so am I. And you can see, I think Srinivasan is there, so was Vice Chancellor at that time, he was also there. Radhakrishnan, who's Swami's driver, he's also there. So, but this is the icing. So this is what we would wait for. This is why we would do the program. And we had different opportunities, but we were, I think, blessed to have such opportunities, and especially for the Pad Namaskar. The other thing that I remember about Swami is how much he was a patron of folk art. This is a Bhangra troupe. We had, you can see, I think maybe some of you may recognize a lot of the students in here. There's Abman Nicole. I can't see all the faces from here, but there may be a lot of students you may recognize. But it's a big troupe. He'd gotten one of the Punjabi devotees to teach us, and of course they would spend days and weeks along with us to actually teach us and train us in the folk dance. So this was one of them, one of his instances. And I think he would also let us perform during some of the functions. And I think this is where the two of us had actually, this is part of a troupe, but I think two of us come ahead and actually invite him to actually join us in the procession or something. That's what I remember of this, where we're actually singing and dancing and asking him to come with us. You can see all the students are really amused, and here, Swami is pretty amused as well. We're calling him, he's trying to understand what we're trying to say, and I think after that he actually follows us behind. And this is, I think, the same, but again, you would have an opportunity to do the same dance. Once you do it, you're part of the Bhangra dance troupe, and then there would be multiple opportunities where they would be called saying, hey, Bhangra troupe, call them over. They would say, and then we would be called, and then we would have to perform. This is a different instance where we're actually performing, I think, for one of the functions, there's a procession, and we're actually performing in the procession. And of course, I mean, these are the icing on the cake for all of us. This is an interesting one. See, if you see here, you can actually see, this is what you see on Swami's sleeve here, that's perspiration from us. Right? We would all be crowding him so much, he wouldn't bother, he would be so happy. We would be crowding him, we would all just, finish our performance, we would be perspiring like horses, but he would be wet without perspiration. Didn't matter to him. And right after this, he would just go out, do his darshan, and come back as usual. This is another bhajan, this is called Chakka Bhajana. This is a typical Andhraite folk dance. So I haven't even heard about it. I think very few people have. It's very popular, I think, in Andhra. But it's called Chakka Bhajana. It's done in the villages where you have like two wooden bars with cymbals in it, and then you clack it together and you actually play that. So he would actually, he used to love to encourage these things. He would love to encourage little folk dances. That's our teacher. He's he'd call this person and to actually teach us so we could perform and encourage this little art. As you can see, of course, we're taking Padnamaskar here again, and then so after that, sometimes he would distribute fruit and he would just walk amongst us. You can see actually, and again, lots of opportunities to perform things like this. If you go to the next one. Yeah, as you can see here, we are performing this in the Purnachandra auditorium. There's a stage there, and we performed in front of him, and then he said, "Okay, I want to try this too." And he actually, you can see how he's enjoying it. He's playing it, and I don't even remember if it was music or something playing, but he would just be clapping, and he used to enjoy this. And I think he's telling something. I'm of course intent on getting the Padnamaskar as this boy is done. You can see, and he's giving us little gifts. I remember this instance, I think, where he was trying to give us a little gift. I mean, this is like a set of pens and pencils that he's trying to give us. After this, of course, there's so many performances and so many students. We're trying to get Padnamaskar, and you give each of us Padnamaskar. And of course, he would want us to move along because the rest of the crowd and the guests are waiting. We were so intent on the Padnamaskar. Here, I think he's telling me, take this. I said, no, I'm going to take the Padnamaskar first before I take that. And he's trying to tell me something there. And then he was a big sports fan too. I think all of you may have heard of the annual sports events, which he would actually be personally involved in organizing and make sure that it's done well. We would perform, he would call devotees, he would make a big show of this. There was a huge parade and a show. It was like a proper a sports festival of sorts. And there used to be matches between Vrindavan and Parthi. And this is one instance where he just decided he would come and watch a basketball match. This is actually at a basketball match. I was the university basketball captain for Bharati, and he's actually watching this. And again, you can see how excited he gets about these things. He would actually, like a little kid, he would jump around and say, and he would get excited, and with every shot, he would be cheering like the rest of the crowd. Again, this is obviously the opportunity that we get again. After that, we take part in this card. And this is the sports event, and the sports event, after it's done, he would give awards and gifts to the team. I think again, I think this is the basketball team that we won. This is another instance where I think he's passing out awards. The thing that you will see in these photographs, more than any of us, he's the one who's most happy that we're getting these awards. You will see that, and he's always got a smile. He's happy that he's actually doing this. This is one such one. I think this is later in college, as the university captain, sports captain. So this is receiving the sports award, I think, for the college. And again, the reason again we would want to do this is the motivation to try and get closer to Swami in some fashion or the other. And as I mentioned, he would get involved in these sports planning and activities. So I was the captain. That's Sanjay Uchul. He's in Maryland, and he was the vice captain. And I think two assistants that we had. The only reason we would do this is so we could go sit down and Swami would actually plan and confer. What conference? I mean, the only reason we were there is to try and get an opportunity to get an namaskar and be with Swami. But that was interesting. This is the memorable trip that we had. I was very fortunate that after my undergrad, I got an opportunity to go with Swami to Kodaikanal with a few other students, and that's the photo that you saw was right in front of Swami's residence in Kodaikanal. We have really fond memories, and you would go in summer. It's beautiful. The weather is beautiful. It's like the New England spring. It's really pleasant and very nice, and you can see the flowers that are in full bloom here. And those were the times of peak photo op. He would every opportunity there was, he would actually stop and take photos. And the interesting thing is, and this is again our beloved Mercedes that we all used to love. This is what he traveled to to Kodaikanal as well. Just have an opportunity to take a photograph of him. He's making a joke of some kind here. But the thing that we remember, he would take photographs as a group, and then he would take individual photographs with every one of us. And there would, of course, sometimes there would be people traveling. He would wait and he would smile for every photograph. He would smile. You can imagine, it's not easy to do. I still remember a wedding, I took, I think, 30 photographs and I was done. I didn't want any more. But, this is Swami for you. I showed you the Mercedes photograph. He would of course travel in those. Radha Krishnan was there with us on those trips. One fine day, he just decided he was going to ride with us in the bus. So he stopped and he said, "I'm going to get on the bus." And these boys, and he got on the bus and he's riding the bus with us on the way to Kodaikanal. Or I think this is probably from Kodaikanal to Kannur, and we were going. These are, some of the students who were there. I think some of you may recognize Sundar is there, Shravan, one of Ratnakar's cousins in Swami Dragapur. Swami's brother is also here, as you can see. And a few other students, of course, Professor Anil Kumar, he's there. I think this is, again, the same trip, a different venue. This is actually in between Swami's residence, and that's on the right. What you see is the bhajan hall. It's like a little auditorium where devotees would gather in the evening. Swami would have whole bhajans. He would sit down, similar to what he does in Parthi. He would actually sit and listen to the bhajans. He would come, take arati, and then go back. So this is that is one of the instances. So the one thing I want to point out, just notice Swami's what he's wearing on his feet. Okay, he's wearing those red slip-ons. Very comfortable. We've actually ordered them, so we know they're very comfortable. They're more like night pajama slippers that you wear, but they're very comfortable. And Swami used to wear them. I remember him wearing this almost throughout the trip. He would wear these. There's a reason why I'm showing you that. So this again, like I told you, there's a lot of photo opportunities because of he would just do this. This is right outside Swami's bungalow again. The same thing again, just a group of us. This, I think, was a similar instance. We had gone on a trip. This is one of the lakes. He took us on a trip to one of the lakes many lakes in Kodaikanal, and he was taking photographs there. This you can see. This is the instance where he was actually. It was a sunny day, and he saw one boy wearing these coolers. He says, "Pretty, looking like a gangster." So, what is this you're wearing? Swami, these are cooler. These are we wear these in the sun, these sunglasses. He says, "So Swami, please, why don't you wear them too?" So Swami says, "No, don't know about that." So he brushes off, and then you would keep begging him, saying, "Please try, please wear, please wear." And then of course he would consent to us, and he decided to take a photograph with us wearing these sunglasses. This is an interesting photograph. I don't know if you know, I don't normally smile in most of the photographs of Swami. I don't know why, but I just did. I'm actually smiling here. There's a reason for this. You see Swami is holding the flower, right? Normally, what would happen? Swami would take pictures as a group, and he's taking pictures with us. As is expected, a lot of us would just be looking up at him. So we'd be standing here, Swami is standing here, and we'd be looking at, "Hey, Agarchur, Dhanpada," he would immediately say, right? So he would point, he would say, "Look at the camera." And then of course, then we would look at the camera, and after 2 seconds, we'd be again looking at it. And so this banter would go back and forth. So that's what's happening with the flower there. So the flower is actually facing Swami. It was bent towards Swami. And this is again, he's trying to make sure that the flower is facing the camera too. He actually turned it, and that's the photograph. I thought that was interesting. This is again in Kodaikanal. This is we were going to, I think this was Berijan Lake. We were taking a trip. So we go over the hills and then come down. It's a beautiful lake. It's very serene. It's not trafficked. Very quiet. It's a beautiful, beautiful lake. And the trip is going there is beautiful as well. And we have lots of scenic spots. And this is one spot that Swami identified. He says, "Stop the car, stop." So, of course, Swami's car would lead and then we would follow. And so we just stopped. So we said, "Okay, so here's one more opportunity we have to take photographs." So we stopped, and it was in the midst of a jungle. So we didn't actually realize. And then Swami said, "Okay, you're going to go there." So what he did, he said, "There?" And Swami, it's pretty steep. So he said, "Just trust me, come on." So he wanted us to go down there. And sure enough, we walked down a little bit, and you would see next, beautiful, beautiful sight. It's a very scenic sight. And sure enough, there was a clearing, and then right beyond it. So this is the side that we're walking down to. You can see the photographs that are being taken from above. But Swami is actually walking down, and while walking down, he gives the opportunity to actually hold his hand. So he's wearing those same red slippers and walking down. Okay, those red slippers that I pointed out to you. He's wearing them and walking down, and I think he just took off his hands for a second there. But we would have the opportunity to hold his hand while he's walking down. And he would be quiet while walking down. Okay, you would think he's focused on walking down. He'd be tickling your hand. He'd be pinching it from time to time. Just he'd be fooling around all the time. So this is the point that he wanted us to take photograph at. I think this is a similar spot, again on the same trip. You can see those same red slippers, you can notice them. And he's standing right at the edge and taking a photograph with us. This is actually in the, and we have the opportunity to have every meal with Swami for about a month. So that was, we were blessed. You can see Swami's plate, okay? I mean, that's a huge plate. It's got lots of little cups. I remember Mrs. Lal, she's just phenomenal. She would actually cook for us every meal, this is for a group of 30 hungry boys, along with Swami and some guests. She would cook the entire meal, every meal for the whole trip, which is, a month, and then we also, I think, went to Kannur and Uchi and so on. And this Swami's trying to eat, so he would, of course, make sure all of us is served, and then he would have it. And then we would go down and we would bend down to start eating with him, and then after about 2 minutes, Swami was done. I remember Swami, I think in that meal, I haven't seen him eat more than 1 roti and a glass of buttermilk. Very thin buttermilk, but he would have a glass of thin buttermilk and a roti. He would just touch the food. It was more like prasad. So, there would be prasad left. So that's it. That was his meal. But we had the opportunity, I think he's distributing candy here. One of those instances. So these were some of the opportunities we had to kind of travel around, spend time with Swami. But the memories that I have is how much he actually enjoyed spending with Swami. He's as they say, the children, he's a child. With adults, with men, he's a man. With women, he's a woman, a mother, and by himself, he's God. But he was a child amongst us. This is one instance where we were inside the interview room. He's talking to us. He's just having fun, as you can see. I think there was one boy. He was trying to make fun of him because the boy was always immaculately dressed. He would, of course, want to look good, presentable in front of Swami. Some of us didn't care that much, but he would be always, prim, properly dressed, hair brushed back, gelled nicely. So Swami's actually making fun of him. So he's saying, "Hey, beauty queen," he's trying to show these things. This boy actually looks in the mirror and he's trying to pat his head every time. So he's making fun of him there. This is one, I remember this. This is towards the end of my term at Bharti. This actually was in Trai. This is our, students, other MBA students. He's actually producing the Koh-i-Noor diamond. He said, "Would you like to see it?" So I said, "Of course, yeah, sure." So he's actually produced this, and he then handed it to us to kind of take it around. And sure enough, I said, "Okay, I need to, Swami, won't they notice it's missing? Don't worry." So and then sure enough, the proof, it was gone. But he was trying to show us while he's with us, we just forget. We get engrossed in his physical frame, in his physical actions. We tend to forget sometimes the power that's within us, the power that's amidst us. He would make sure that we forget, because he, I think, wanted us to behave with him as a friend, as a parent, as on the physical side. He would let us forget that he's God. And then suddenly, sometimes, he would just remind you, I can actually do anything. I'm beyond what you can imagine. Sometimes it just hits you while you're there, and that's when you realize, oh my God, what an opportunity I have. I remember once I was in the interview room. He had called over my dad. He had called over my grandmom, and mother wasn't visiting at that point. So he called them over. He said, "Okay, call them over for an interview." So he called them over. So this is the first time my dad actually was sitting in the interview room with Swami. So he was trying to tell Swami, he's a good boy, Swami. He's a good boy. So Swami, he sometimes he does stuff, but I think he's a good boy, Swami. So Swami, looked and smiled. He looked at me as though saying, this guy, you think he's good? Then he looked back and he says, I know, don't worry, I know. He knows everything about us. He knows while he's sitting with us right now, he knows about us. He is with us. He loves us. He always made sure that we remember that he loved us while we were there. He loves us now. He's amongst us. Again, another instance where Swami would remind you. Another instance where again I was there with Swami, and in the interview room, there's an interview room where you have with all the other devotees. You're there sitting there. Swami's talking. He gives a talk, and then inside there, sometimes what happens is he takes you into an inner interview room, and then he says, okay, now you realize that okay, this is serious stuff. So, you go inside, and then he talks to you one-on-one. Sometimes he takes you individually. Sometimes he calls you and says, okay, come with me inside. And you talk to you individually. Or sometimes you're called with just the family amongst the others who are there, and you talk to us. On one instance, I remember he called us into the inside interview room, and I don't remember all the discussion or all the things that he said. But right at the end, he says, what do you want? He says, out of the blue, what do you want? So, of course, so what should I say? Swami, I want you. So he says, and then he says, everything is in his hand. So, and sometimes when Swami wants to tell you, he wants to make sure you understand, he speaks to you in your tongue. Ellam in the kaiyil irukkuda. No, not da. Ellam in the kaiyil irukkuda. He would say. So it makes a little bit of Telugu sometimes. He would say, everything is in this hand. Whatever you want, anytime, everything is in this hand. You just need to ask. Ask and you shall be given. Seek and you shall find. So, sometimes he just reminds you who he is. That we realize the opportunity we have, how blessed we are, to be in his presence. Again, this is just some instances where, more instances where he just likes to give, is distributing stuff. He would be doing these things. Of course, you may have seen this while he's there. This is one of the instances I told you. I think this is actually probably in Kodai, or one of the trips that we had taken. No, actually, this is in our MBA. So this is while we were doing our MBA. He wanted us to go on a trip to Bangalore and visit some industries. And it had been organized, I think, by Sriram. So he had organized the trip, and so we were visiting some industries. So while we were there, he wanted us to, of course, have some money to spend. So he's giving each of us money to spend while we were on a trip there. So this, I was again fortunate to get a gold medal for in my undergraduate from him. You can see again, I'm stoic. He's clearly more proud than I am of what he's handing out. This is what we remember. This is what I remember. And as he would always say, be happy. He would always walk amongst us and say, be happy. Brothers and sisters, that's all we can remember of him. The one thing that he, of course, taught us, and we as students try and carry, is this saying that Swami often says, Kalasi Melasi Perugudam, Kalasi Melasi Perugudam, Kalasi Melasi Kalasukuna Televini Poshinchadam. So, he says, let us move together, let us learn together, let us grow together, and what we've learned, let us share together. So that's, I think, the message that we hope we can share, we hope we can carry along through our lives. We can share. I thank you for the opportunity to share these few thoughts with you. Sign off.
Sriram, my humble pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet, dear brothers and sisters. So I'm just going to share briefly my experiences. They were not as enriching, I should say, as Sriram's, but in my own way I was fortunate to have studied in his institute. And my initiation into the Sai family actually began like Sriram before I guess I was even born. My mom apparently went to Nagar Sangeetan. This was the month of May in Dharmaksheta, and Swami was there for Nagar Sangeetan. And she went, this was 21st of May, and I was born on the 24th. So I guess I had darshan of Swami before I was even born. And then after that, I went to Balticals, the whole regular thing. I was very fortunate. There are several key events in my life. I think I had Swami bless me. I was probably like 6 months or a year when my mom took me to Puttaparthi, and Swami wrote home for me. And apparently I burst out crying. I used to do that a lot as a child. And and he wrote home and he just kind of consoled me. And then after that, when I was around 11, I ended up getting Upanayam from Swami. So this was, Swami just announced he's going to do Upanayam. We ended up in Parthi, and fortunately for me, he did my Upanayam. And then my story, my entry into Puttaparthi itself was sort of interesting. So a few months before, maybe around November, December, my mom had gone to Puttaparthi, and she was, I was in my 4th grade, I was planning to go into engineering. She was sitting there, and she was just praying to Swami, Swami, please do whatever is best for him. And then Swami is walking by, and as Sriram mentioned, Swami generally speaks to each person in their own tongue. So he looks at this Telugu lady. And my mom stammered, so he looks at this Telugu lady and he says, Paam Mulayal. And my mom was taken aback. Why is she saying that? Paam Mulayal means poor lady, she has no brains. And he actually looked at somebody else, and he used to do that a lot. He would look at somebody else and say something, and it would actually end up meaning for you. So my mom was kind of puzzled, and anyway she comes back, she forgets about the incident. A couple of months later, I'm playing around, and we have this well. And it was kind of interesting, they were getting water out of the well, and they found a shivlingam. And it was just lying there, and I don't know whether there's some kind of superstition that you're not supposed to take the shivlingam home or not pray to it if it's on the well. Not quite sure, so it was kind of abandoned. And I was like, that's not right. So I took the shivlingam home, and I went home, and I started praying. The next few months, I don't know what happened, suddenly my mind changed, and I decided I want to go to Parthi. All along, I had no such notion, I had no such idea. Even though I had been in Swami's fold, I was thinking, engineering, everybody else was doing the same thing. But then come April, I announced my parents that, I want to go to Puttaparthi. And my mom was like, are you sure? And that was the reason why she asked me that, because I guess in her mind, I was not the exact kind of student who goes to Puttaparthi. I was a very naughty kid. And, she knew that students are very disciplined, sitting there for hours at end. She wasn't quite sure I could cope with it, and this happened too suddenly. So she was really surprised. But I stood my ground. I said, no, I want to go to Puttaparthi. I want to go to Swami's college. And so I go in the month of May. I go and give my entrance examination, and lo and behold, I actually got admitted to Puttaparthi, and there I was. And there's a thing about being a student, and we all believe that even though there was this whole procedure to have, to take the entrance examination, you have an interview. Most of us believe, and I truly believe that we were fortunate to be chosen. And it's not just our entry into Puttaparthi, it's also the exit. And I'll come to that. I think your time in Parthi is, in a way, just like your time on earth, I think pretty fixed. You may come with all sorts of plans, and you may decide you want to be there longer or you don't want to be there. If he wants it, if it's his will, you will end up being in just for the right amount of time. Like Sriram mentioned, life in Puttaparthi for all students, it revolved around Swami. So here we were, a bunch of people from all across the country, spanning from Kashmir to Nagaland, all speaking different languages, different cultures. But we all had one thing in common, and that was to be close to Swami. And I think we all wished for one thing. We wanted to hear the golden words. The Swami would walk by, and then he would suddenly turn around and ask a boy, what's your name? or where are you from? And that was a big deal. I mean, it's not like we didn't know that Swami didn't know us. I mean, probably he knew us, he knew our past, present, future. But it was just his way of connecting with you, and all of us did everything so that we could hear those words, be close to Swami. And this is irrespective of what activity you participated in. Studying in Puttaparthi was an absolutely fascinating experience because, like again Brother Sriram mentioned, you had so much opportunity to learn so many things. I mean, you would come in, you would probably, you could do music, you could act, speak, sports, arts, all kinds of things. So before I came to Parthi, I never really sang. I mean, I used to sing, what we in India call bathroom singer. And I don't think my parents were very happy about it. My dad in particular used to discourage me from singing. And when I initially started singing in Puttaparthi, I think most people felt that it was justified. And anyway, so I come to Parthi and here I am, and so I want to sing. And I don't want to sing because, I was interested in music, but my main goal in singing was the chance. That if I do sing and if I become good enough, I'll get a chance to sing in front of Bhagwan, which means opportunities, which means, again, Swami will talk to us. And that's what I did. I started singing, and I'm sure I kept a lot of people awake initially. But anyway, as time progressed, most people get better. I did too. And finally, in my final third year, I actually had a chance. We were in there was a program in the hostel, and Swami actually came to the hostel. And he came and I had the chance to perform in front of him. And I also had the chance to sing bhajans in front of him. And though through all this, Swami never spoke to me. Which was very interesting because here I was trying to have Swami speak to me. And he never did. But there is an important lesson in this. And that is, just because Swami doesn't speak to you doesn't mean you don't have His grace. You have His immense grace all the time. Everything that you do in life, every success you have, is probably because of His grace. It's just that He showers this personal attention on some people and some others. Of course, I'm still a lot more fortunate than most other people because I had the chance to study there, to listen to him. And there are a couple of incidents that I recall. There was a student, one of my classmates actually, he had some kind of infection on his hand. And initially went to the doctor, they did something, nothing happened, didn't get cured. It just got worse and worse, and it almost looked putrid. It was, it was a really bad wound, looking really bad. And finally, they put him in the front row, to see whether Swami can talk to him. And he sat there, and Swami looked at it, and he said, apply banana peel. And he actually put banana peel on that. It was a very unconventional treatment. And 2 days later, the whole thing was gone. It was a sort of miracle. The doctor was amazed, what happened. Banana peel, that's it. And this guy's hand was cured. And I recall, I was in my second year, I think, and I recall, I was like, man, I wish I could get my hand infected. I was almost tempted to cut it actually, because I was like, at least that way, I would get a chance with Swami. And that's how we all think, all the boys, this is our thinking, how do we get close to Swami? How does Swami talk to us? The other incident is that I remember is once Swami was giving darshans. And how all the devotees, they always trying to get Pada Namaskar. And we also as students always trying to get Pada Namaskar. I think Swami was walking around and this one devotee probably grabbed Swami's feet, maybe a little too hard. And Swami tripped and fell. It was very upsetting, and Swami is falling in. So a whole bunch of people went. And I think some of the students and some of the even faculty actually went and probably beat up the poor guy. And we were like, all livid, how could he do that? Anyway, Swami was okay, nothing really happened. Swami walks around. The next day he calls us all and said, you are really bad boys. Some of you I know went and hit that man. Why did you do that? And we were like, Swami, but he did this. And he's like, it doesn't matter. He said, he's a devotee. He was just trying to get my Pada Namaskar. Sometimes things like this happen. He should not have done that. Very bad boys. And that is how Swami was. And in spite of what happened, he felt that, the poor guy, he shouldn't have done anything. It's not that he was badly injured or anything. But, still people got angry. And he was like, don't be angry at him. It's not his fault. And then once, the third incident that I'm going to talk about is during the summer course. Swami actually was giving a speech, and suddenly in the middle of the speech he was talking about, and these summer courses, the morning was only for the students. We had, when I was there, all 3 years we had summer courses. In fact, it stopped the year after I left, And so I was fortunate enough to participate in 4 summer courses, which is where I had the opportunity to speak also. And one of the speeches that Swami gave, he suddenly said, Nala Damayanti, when Nala gave this Mangal Sutra to Damayanti, and he materialized this big pendant. I mean, it was huge. And then he's like, do you guys want to see it? And we're like, yes, Swami. And this is actually a much bigger auditorium, and people are sitting in rows. Swami takes that, walks down the stage, and then walks among all the rows, literally. Maybe he skipped like 2 or 3, but every row he walked. And this was several rows, I'm talking about 89. He walked showing that to every student. And that's how much he loved us, and that's how he conveyed his love to us. Like he said, after 3 years I ended up leaving Puttaparthi, and to be perfectly honest, there are a lot of times when I regret that I left. At the time I left, I wish I had stayed back, to have more chances with Swami. But like I said, I think your time, you come in with his wish and you leave with his will. And during my stay, like I said, I always wanted to Swami to talk to me. He never did. I never had those things. But I know that he's always been with me. And in everything I do, and everything I've done, every time I've sat down and prayed to Swami, he's been there for me. And so I think based on my experience and my stay in Perthi, Swami does not have to physically talk to you or physically even give you an interview, and yet you could be very blessed. Sometimes those people are more blessed than the ones he actually talks to, because they probably need him more. And that's been my experience. And like Sriram said, he's always with us, and even if his physical form is not around. That's a lesson. That's a lesson that I took. That even if he can talk to me, he's always been with me, and he will always continue to be with me. Desai.